Welcome back to the Green Beans Go channel. It's your host, me, and we're going to talk about Caitlin Clark and Chennedy Carter and everything that transpired this weekend, as well as how the world reacted to it, and just my thoughts on all things related to this, but also Caitlin Clark in her first month in the WNBA. So let's jump into that. Before we do, though, I want to talk about Caitlin Clark as a player and about specifically what makes her great and what makes her someone who is getting all this attention. Yes, her ability is a major part of that, but also the fact that she is a fierce competitor. She doesn't back down. She plays to win, she plays chippy, and she plays tough. So I do not personally believe that Caitlin Clark is out here getting picked on. All right. I do think she's getting a lot of attention. I do think she's getting a lot of hard fouls. I do think she's getting a lot of physicality. But I think she is someone who's not going to back down from that. And I would actually venture a guess that she is someone who welcomes that. She wants people to play her tough and play her rough. And I understand that this weekend with the Chennedy Carter incident, it was a little bit different than what we had normally seen. So we are going to talk about that. I'll give my opinions on it. I realize that that specific play is probably not what she expects from opponents, but the bottom line is I think she's going to welcome what she is getting in the WNBA thus far, besides a few certain incidents. Let's talk about some context. All of this was prior to the incident. Chennedy Carter's guarding her. You know, they're playing rough. They're playing physical. She gives a little bit of a push off down under the basket. She catches a bow. She chirps at her. Okay, Caitlin Clark is not, well, we'll talk about it in a second. Okay, down here, gives her a little shove to clear space, to get position. We're gonna watch this again, and I'm going to give you just my thoughts on it. Because I think a lot of people saw, I'll speak for myself. I saw Chennedy Carter blindside her, and it looks completely uncalled for. And in some ways, it is uncalled for. But there were things that preceded that are important for the context. Caitlin Clark was playing a very competitive, a very physical, a very rough game. All of that was basketball related. All of that was fine within the context of basketball. I get that. And I get that Chennedy Carter's blindside hit on her was not within the context of basketball. So I'm not excusing in any way Chennedy Carter's actions, but I'm saying there is context to this. This was not just Chennedy Carter who is jealous of all the attention that Clark is getting, and she's envious, and she just comes up and hits her just because. There were things in the game prior that led Chennedy Carter to respond in a certain way, albeit a way that I don't think was acceptable. Okay, so here's another play. This was before the incident, under the basket, fighting for a loose ball. A little elbow to the face there. She clears her out. And you can argue that, her hands are pulling her forward. I don't know if I buy that. I think she just got caught in a bad spot. Caitlin tries to move her out of the way, does elbow her in the face. Her hands are not there to protect herself. Do I think that Caitlin Clark is doing this on purpose, trying to elbow her in the face? Not necessarily, but do I think that Chennedy Clark does get elbowed in the face by Caitlin Clark right there? Yes. Okay. So all of these things happened before this. Okay. And this was the play that a lot of you have probably seen. And this is probably where you see a lot of conversation online. Now, this was called a common foul. It was later changed by the WNBA to, I believe, a flagrant. Not that it does anything after the game, but just for clarity purposes, it was changed from a common foul. But it was called a common foul on the floor, which, that's a little bit much for a common foul. Not a basketball play at all. But I'm going to say this. I do not believe this blindside hit was an act done solely out of hate or envy for Caitlin Clark. I think there are events in the basketball game between two competitors that preceded this. Does that excuse this? No. But does it make a little more sense about why it happened in the context of competition and basketball? I believe it does. So here's my conclusion, part one. It was a dirty play by Carter, but it was a result of competitive back and forth play that was occurring prior to this. Okay, that's where I stand on this matter. My conclusion, part two, I believe there is a deeper message the WNBA is trying to send Clark and fans that she can't just waltz in and steal the show. You know, we've seen conversations about this, her getting bullying, her getting extra attention on defense, her being more physical. I think that's real. All right. I think if I was in the WNBA and I have been playing for years with, no attention from the outside world, more or less, from sports fans, more or less, and somebody comes in and now people want to pay attention just because of her, I'm going to do my absolute best to make her life miserable. Okay, that's just human nature, right? You don't want to pay attention to me for 10 years, putting my heart and soul into something, and then this one girl walks in and has never played a game in this league that I've tried to grow, and now all of a sudden it's growing, right? There's going to be animosity. It's just human nature. And I think there's a bit of a paradox here, because does her presence ultimately benefit them? Yes. Okay, it benefits the WNBA. It benefits their wallets. It benefits growth. It benefits a lot for not only WNBA, but women's sports in general. Now, is her losing games beneficial to them as players? Yes, absolutely. The Fever losing helps their teams, their respective teams, whatever they may be, grow in the standings and perform better. But her winning is beneficial to them as employees. The more the Fever win, the better the Fever get, the more attention that people have, the more eyes on the game, the better it's going to be for the economics of the WNBA. You know what also helps the economics of the WNBA is beef, okay, is drama. So all of this also helps. Now, do I think this is calculated by Angel Reese and Chennedy Carter to cause this beef, to get extra eyes on it? Not necessarily, but do I think it hurts? No. I think it's probably helpful for them, for their brand, and for the WNBA. Here's my final conclusion about this specific incident, not about the final conclusion of this video. Okay, there's a little bit more. I don't think Caitlin Clark needs your Twitter support. I have not heard her complain once. She knows it's going to be rough for her. She knows they're going to play her tough. I just think it's funny that everyone is on Twitter. Obviously, the race card gets played more often than it needs to. It's all baked into that, okay? And people on the outside are making this, I think, a bigger deal than Caitlin Clark herself would make this. It's basketball at the end of the day. It's competition at the end of the day. She loves this. That's what makes her great. So I think if you're tempted to get on Twitter and try to race bait and try to talk negatively about these other women because of how they're choosing to approach their style of play against Caitlin, I don't think you're helping anything. Okay. Now, obviously, an intentional blindside hit on a player is not called for. Okay, I'm not excusing Chennedy Carter's actions in any way, but I'm saying in the context of a competitive game, I'm not shocked that happened. We see that happen at every level of every sport imaginable, from high school to professional, okay? And yes, I'm talking men's sports. And when that happens in men's sports, people don't react like they are reacting to this. So that's my point about the matter. Now, the aftermath is where I start to kind of really back up away from Chennedy Carter. I can justify in some aspects the cause of the blindside hit. This is where it starts to get kind of goofy to me. In the interview after the game, she says she's not answering any questions about Caitlin Clark, which is fair. She doesn't have to give attention to Caitlin Clark if she doesn't want to. But it's funny to me that Draymond Green comments on this and says Indiana better go invest in an enforcer fast, as if he realizes that is his role on the Golden State Warriors. It's like at this point, I think the world has accepted that, but it's just funny to see him acknowledge it so publicly and pretty much admit that he does all of the antics and things he does on the court because that's his role. Which again, we have not seen any like obviously people hate Draymond and think Draymond's a dirty player, and I get all that, but her blindside hit on Clark is the softest thing in Draymond Green's history book. So if you want to talk about, uncalled for acts, we can talk all day long about Draymond Green on the court. Let's settle down on this incident. She did double down, maybe even triple down, and say, besides 3-point shooting, what does she bring to the table? Which again is just slightly ignorant. I think you're trying too hard to make this into something that I don't think it should be. She is a much better player than just 3-point shooting. So that I think that was a little bit ridiculous. Here are my absolute final thoughts. This is Caitlin Clark's last few months. This is her spring. She plays the Final Four on April 5th. She gets drafted 10 days later, and her first game is a month after that. Think about the WNBA, or sorry, think about the NBA, think about the NFL, think about any other, in the MLB, right? You go to the minor leagues more often than not and get acclimated. I have not seen a professional sport have this kind of turnaround from, I don't even know what team I'm playing for, and a month and a half later, I'm starting a first game. That's insane. That's unbelievable, okay? I mean, regular jobs have training for longer than that. Starbucks people get acclimated to making the frappes longer than Caitlin Clark had to know her teammates' names. She's also on the worst team in the WNBA, technically the second worst out of 12. There's only 12 teams in the WNBA. The Fever have had the first pick, I believe, 2 years in a row. So she's not walking into a very highly developed, advanced, skilled team. And that's going to matter. All right. She has to be the all-star on a team she just gets to. Not very many teams have a rookie that starts in this capacity and has to be the leader. Okay. So let's just keep that all in mind. She's also getting all the attention, not only from the media, but from every 5 players on defense. So, my bottom line is the Aaron Rodgers quote. It's the relax, guys. We are not even a month into the WNBA season. Her stats are fine. She's like 16, 5, and 6, right? She's playing as well as I think she can, given these circumstances. So if I had to give general advice to viewers of this, is keep watching, keep supporting, keep engaging in conversation, and be productive about it. Let's not jump to conclusions about these women and their careers and what we think is, correct in every situation. All right. I try to give my opinions in these videos, but I also try to understand the full scope. And I don't always do that. And that's why I appreciate people commenting, giving me other thoughts. But, the racism, the sexism, that stuff is just like, what are we doing? Like seriously, how does that help anything? Right? And if you believe in sports and competition and athletics and growing a game, then let's talk about the game. Okay? So that is my full scope analysis of the weekend's activities. And I wish everybody the best in this situation. I am excited to see Caitlin Clark's journey, and I want people to play her tough, and I want people to give her their best, because that's what she gives them, right? She talks her stuff as well. She is not just an innocent, poor little girl who's getting bullied out here, okay? She's a dog. So they're going to respond accordingly. That's what I got for you today. Like, follow, subscribe, and kiss somebody on the lips. Goodbye.